Well, I forgot to let everybody know I'm doing this, but nobody's going to watch anyway. Hey, and welcome to uh, Road to 500, Part 5, movies 100 to 1 that I like. Part 1, movies 100 to 51. It's quite a mouthful, isn't it? My name's Dylan Lang. I run a YouTube show called Dylan Knows. I've been doing it now for close to 10 years. My 500th episode will be later tonight, and I've been doing this sort of lead up to it, listing my 500 top movies that I like of all time. And after 4 very long but fun episodes, I have come to the finale. However, due to last night's episode going close to 3 hours long, which I've been trying to narrow it down to about 2.5 or less, this one went to 3 hours. I had to make the decision that, much like a lot of the movies that are out there now, The Hunger Games, Harry Potter, Twilight, that have cut down the storylines from the final episode to 2 parts, I'm going to do that today. So the way it's going to work is I'm going to do part 1, which would be 100 to 51. I'm going to go take my wife to dinner for Mother's Day, and then come back. I will do 50 to 1, and then I got to do the notes for my 500th show, and I'll do my 500th show around 11:30 p.m. tonight. So that's the plan. So real quick ground rules before I get up and running. I can spread my wings out a little bit more here because it's not going to be as long as the other ones. So these are films that I like. This is my top 500 films that I like. They are films that I grade on rewatchability, character, story, direction, music, and just stuff that I like. So you're not going to see a lot of the, Academy Award, foreign independent sort of films, or the films that all the film snobs say everyone should love in the world, because there's no one should dictate what you should like or don't like. So this is what I'm doing. This is my list. If you don't like my list, well, that's too bad. You make your own list, and then you can make your statements there. They are films that were in movie theaters, were direct to television, direct to DVD, on streaming. So I have a whole list of all those. So I took from a wide variety of stuff. These are all films that I have seen. There's a whole lot more. This list is also fluid, which means that this is not the end all. This is not the end of the list. This is it. This is the list of the greatest movies of all time, because movies keep coming out, and there are going to be some movies that are coming out that are going to be better than some of the movies that I have on here, probably. And then there's also other movies that I have not seen yet that people keep telling me I should see, or I want to see, or whatever, that may end up being better than some of the ones on here that I've chosen already. So we've already gone through 400 of them, actually. Technically, we've gone through 400 movies right now over a span of 4 episodes. So now we're at the finish line here. So again, my list, you may not like it, and a lot of films are also, not that I'm a hater for the films that came before the 1970s, but there's just not as many as interesting to me that I want to go see. Whereas, all my list is usually from movies from 1970 to present day. I actually had one that came out a couple weeks ago, was on my list yesterday. One that came out last year, a couple came out last year, were on my list. So this is where we get to the nitty gritty. These are my top 100 films. So as I said, we're going to start with the top 50 for part 1. So here we go. Number 100 is Time Bandits, directed by Terry Gilliam of Monty Python fame. Sean Connery, Michael Palin, Shelley Duvall, John Cleese, not Martin Freeman. Where's it, Martin Freeman? No, it's not Martin Freeman. It's the actor who played Bilbo, the original actor, not the one who played him in The Hobbit, is in it as well. But Time Bandits is David Warner's in it also. Time Bandits is, and that's the other thing you're going to find out, that I'm going to just sort of spout off stuff. I'm going to need to look up names, stuff like that. I'm going to try to remember people's names, stuff like that. So I'm going to try to just give you a brief thing. Time Bandits is definitely another one of these unique films. I had a couple of them last night. This one is one that's a little out there, and it ends very ambiguously and in very bizarre way also. But the basic premise you need to know is that God created the universe, but he didn't do it all by himself. He had helpers. And these helpers are little people, and there's a whole group of them. And after a while, the little people have, gotten tired of doing what they're doing, so they want to get, some money and fame and prestige as well. So they steal a map of the universe, which have holes that take them into different time portals. So it takes them to different periods of time in the universe. They can go from way before, BC, or they can go all the way into the future and stuff like that. And they have these holes, and they have the map that has all those details that. So their plan is they're going to go to these different points in time and steal stuff from there and pawn them off or keep them as treasure or whatever. Meanwhile, there is a demonic person who wants to steal the map to destroy the universe as well. We do get an appearance from God. And we do have a child who joins up in their adventures. We have Michael Palin playing multiple roles, as is Shelley Duvall. We also have cameos from a whole bunch of other people, as I said, John Cleese and a few others as well. And the Time Bandits go through time and have all kinds of crazy adventures. So Time Bandits is number 100. Again, a very unique, crazy sort of film that was a staple for me in the 80s when cable was big. And it is a bizarre sort of film, but it is very well shot. Terry Gilliam is a genius, and Time Bandits is number 100. Number 99 started a bunch of people's careers and also started a pop culture quote in I'll Be Back. Number 99 is The Terminator, the original one. James Cameron had only been doing, minor stuff so far. And so he had written this screenplay and he wanted to make it, but he didn't have a lot of money to do it. So he's scrounged around to make his money up, and he had to film it guerrilla style, which means that he could not get permission from locations to use the shooting. So he just went with the film crew and they filmed the sequences without permission to do it. So it's also Arnold Schwarzenegger's first really big role that he's in. I think he was in Conan before it, but this is one where he was a lot more of a. When Cameron saw him, he said he wanted him to play the robot. You also have Michael Biehn, Linda Hamilton, and young Bill Paxton appears very briefly in the film. Bill Paxton is in basically almost every one of Jim Cameron's movies, and Bill Paxton also is one of the only actors to have been killed by a Terminator, a Predator, and an Alien. So you gotta love that, and you gotta love Bill Paxton. So, premise is real quick. If you don't know the premise, obviously this one's something. Basically, it's about robots, AI robots that have taken over the Earth and destroyed it in a nuclear holocaust. And then there's rebels who are trying to fight back. And eventually there was one rebel that was able to turn the tide by name of John Connor. But the Terminators have created time travel. So they came up with a plan to go back in time and kill John Connor before he was born, meaning going after his mother. But there was little information about who his mother was. So when they go back in time, they have to go find the proper Sarah Connor in 1984. Meanwhile, the rebels hear about this and they send one of their own people back in time to go and save the day. And that's all you need to know about that. What's his name? Lance Henriksen's also in it as well. So you got to love that. So Terminator is number 99. Number 98, as I was talking about Aliens, Predators, and Terminator, we have the original Alien. Ridley Scott has been all over these 500 movies because he's one of, I never realized how many films of his that I actually enjoy. And Alien was the first one of the Alien series. Sigourney Weaver is the main draw for this one. John Hurt's in it as well. And I'm trying to remember. There's a couple of, I think, there is the guy from Homicide, the guy from Twin Peaks. Again, as I said, I know them. I can see them. Right now, and normally I know their names, but at this moment, I just can't think of of who they are right now. So let's see who we got here. Sigourney Weaver. They got everybody on here. The 1979 one. Let's look at the next. Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, Veronica Cartwright, John Hurt, Harry Dean Stanton, Ian Holm, Yaphet Kotto. That's who it was. Yaphet Kotto and Harry Dean Stanton were the ones I was looking at. So those are your cast of Alien. And basically it's, a haunted house in space. Basically is that a mining crew discover these weird eggs on the planet, and then one of their members gets this face hugger sort of thing sucked on him, so they put him into the hospital wing and discover they can't just kill it because it's got something in his throat. Eventually it shrivels and dies, and the guy seems to be okay, so he recovers and they have an enjoyable dinner. And then all of a sudden you have the graphic scene everybody remembers where they're eating dinner and all of a sudden the guy starts having an attack and then his chest bursts open while they're eating dinner, and a little creature runs out and turns into the xenomorph. And so now it's a matter of picking people off one by one as they try to stop this. So a classic horror sci-fi film, definitely directed by Ridley Scott. And one of his earlier films, I think this film came out in 1979, as I said in there. So this is one of Ridley Scott's earlier films. So and it did started the franchise and set up Sigourney Weaver as a badass female ass-kicking action stars all the way back in 1979. So you got to love that stuff. Up 97, I talked about Terry Gilliam and Monty Python. Well, here's my first Monty Python movie. Monty Python, The Life of Brian, as number 97. Directed by Terry Jones and Terry Gilliam. I don't think Terry Jones is the only one who directed this one. I think Gilliam helped direct it. Or did Terry Jones just direct this one? I can't remember. But regardless, it's your Monty Python crew. See, I remember them all because my mind's bad. Cleese, Palin, Jones, Gilliam, Idol, and Graham Chapman. Those are your Monty Python, and all of them play multiple roles. This Monty Python movie is a take on religion. And the Monty Python crew are all very well educated writers and artists. So you get a lot of, sex and fart and stink jokes, but you also get some really good religious philosophizing jokes and a very interesting depiction of how religion was formed. And one of the best scenes in the movie, which explains how religion becomes religion. Basically, the premise is, there were two babies born on Christmas Day in the stable, and one of them was Jesus and the other was Brian. And so their lives are intertwined, and only that way they share a birthday. But, Brian grew up at the same time as Jesus. So when Jesus is doing his stuff through the Middle East leading up to his life, Brian is there to witness it firsthand, but he really doesn't care because he is a guy who's just trying to get laid and live his life and survive while being cared for by his domineering mother. And eventually he falls in with a group of rebels who want to take down the Roman Empire, who is holding their city hostage. So he becomes a terrorist. And soon after that, after a terrorist activity where he gets caught and he escapes, he is being pursued by the Roman Empire and eventually gets mistaken for another prophet because prophets were a dime a dozen during Jesus's time. So now a different group of people are following Brian, believing he is a prophet. And one of the best sequences is he is holding a gourd and he's running away after people believe he's some sort of prophet. He's running away from a group of people who are trying to learn from him. So he loses his sandal and he drops his gourd, or he hands his gourd off to somebody and then runs away. Now, one group of the group that has milled about following him, they stop. One group takes the sandal and says, this is what we need to follow. This is what it means. This means we need to remove our sandals and feel the earth on our feet, and so on and so forth. So they split off into that religion that follows the sandal. Then there's the group that follows the religion of the gourd. The one guy believes, no, what he's saying is that you need to grow and care things in this sort of hollow tube sort of thing. So there's a group now that splits off from the main religion now that creates another religion all around this one guy who just wants to be left alone. And then there's the third one of the people who just want to listen to him. So you right that second, you see how the Catholic religion was split off into Baptists and Lutheran and Jesus Christ scientists, and how that could happen, where they take one aspect of the Bible and then make that their focus and go on. So it is an absolutely deft telling of how religion is created. It is outstanding. It's also more bawdy than some of their other movie. Well, there's only really one other movie, but it's more bawdy than Holy Grail, with actual full frontal nudity, both male and female full frontal nudity, lots of sex talk, and stuff like that. But it is absolutely hilarious. I try to watch it every Good Friday because it does have a Easter sort of thing, because it does take place during the life of Jesus. And it's also just really, really absolutely funny, particularly the finale scene. Always look on the bright side of life as people are getting crucified. It's outstanding, and it's number 97. Number 96 is the movie that continued to show that Steven Spielberg was a force to be reckoned with. After Jaws, he did Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is number 96. Close Encounters stars Richard Dreyfuss, Terry Garr, and the mom from Christmas Story, since I have Melinda Dillon, that's right, as the main stars. And the premise behind that is there's been a number of UFO sightings recently in this one area of the United States. And the people who are affected by it are all sort of being mind controlled into building this weird feature out of whatever they can find, dirt, mashed potatoes, whatever, and they don't know what it is. But it turns out that it's Devil's Tower, a natural monument out in the desert somewhere, and they believe that there's something is going to be happening there. So it's like calling them. So this group of people goes out to try to figure out what's going on. But it's just basically, before you get to that point, it's basically about how people start experiencing UFO sightings and what happens after the sightings happen, and all the stuff that happens with the family and friends and neighbors, and the ridicules and the lying and all that stuff that starts to happen. So it's a very well told story about alien arrivals and sightings and abductions and stuff like that. It covers everything you need to know under the deft hand of Steven Spielberg. Great special effects, a wonderful storyline, great John Williams music as always. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is number 96. Another director that I have all over the place, with Ridley Scott and Steven Spielberg and Jim Cameron and this guy, Robert Zemeckis. Robert Zemeckis is one of my favorite directors also. And this one is a film that not a lot of people probably enjoy too much, but it is all on Mr. Tom Hanks' shoulders. Number 95 is Castaway. Castaway is one of my favorite Tom Hanks movies. And he's, don't get me wrong, he's the star of it. Helen Hunt is a supporting role in it, but that's really about it. This is Tom Hanks' movie. Premise is real easy, as you can tell by the name Castaway. Tom Hanks is a guy who is works for Federal Express, goes all over the world trying to train new people for Federal Express. So on Christmas Eve, he's going to get ready to propose to his girlfriend, played by Helen Hunt, but gets called away on an emergency, and he said he'll be back in about 3 days. And then and then what he does is he drops he does his sort of proposal there, and then we'll discuss this more later. Boom, drops it on her table and says, there you go, and he leaves and says, I'll be right back. And he's not right back. Basically, while they're flying, a massive storm hits while they're flying over the ocean, and it hits the airplane. The airplane crashes in the middle of the ocean, and Tom Hanks is able to survive somehow and ends up washing on a deserted island, being the only survivor of the airplane crash, with a number of items that FedEx was delivering as well get floated up onto sea. Also, members of the crew float up as well, dead, and so he has to bury them. But now he's all by himself. He's got to learn how to survive by himself, with trying to find food and water and shelter, and how he's going to try to escape. And So the movie's basically divided in half. The first half is him learning to survive on the island, being there for just a couple days, and then it cuts to like 4 years later, where is still there, has not been rescued, but he is acclimated to living on the island. He knows how to hunt for his own food. He's built shelter. He's built a ship, a boat. He keeps trying to escape, but the shoals around the island are make it almost impossible for him. He keeps trying to do signs to try to get people to find him, but he's in a small, minuscule island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and no one's going to be able to find him. And eventually, he forces himself to push forward, and this is his do or die thing. He's been there 4 years. He's done. He's tired of being there, and he's getting pushed back over and over again from the shoals. And this time he's going to try to push back against them. So that's the premise behind that. Now, what's really interesting about this movie is, first of all, a couple of things interesting. One is Tom Hanks absolutely shows that he's Tom Hanks. The movie came out in 2000. He absolutely kills it in the role that is centered entirely around him. A lot of it is dialogue free, though, in order to give him more dialogue, so it's not just like a silent type movie. They have a volleyball, which has his bloody handprint on it that looks like a face, and he talks to the volleyball like his person. That way we can see what's going on in his head and stuff like that. Wilson's his name. And the direction by Zemeckis is great, using all kinds of great effects shots and shots of scenery and stuff like that is absolutely stunning and gorgeous. But because they had to show the passage of time, Tom Hanks at the beginning of the movie is not fat, but he's chunky. He's not unhealthy. And to show the passage of time, after they filmed the first part of the movie, Zemeckis had to shut down production for about 6 months as Tom Hanks went on a massive diet to lose like close to 200 pounds. I mean, not 200 pounds, like 100 plus pounds. I think it's 100 pounds he had to lose to play the skeletal sort of castaway on the island who's only been surviving on fish for the most part. And so during that period where Tom Hanks is going on these crash diets and losing weight rapidly, stuff like that, Zemeckis needs something to do to keep his his crew busy before, you don't want them to shut down for like 6 months and you have to start up everything again because pre-production takes some time. He decides to just keep them going. They make a small little movie called What Lies Beneath, which was earlier, was in a few episodes ago where I mentioned it, with Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford. It's a horror film that is very well done, but that was filmed entirely in between the shooting of Castaway. So that way Zemeckis had two movies that came out around the same time. So that's really cool. But Castaway is really good. It's a movie I keep trying to get my daughter to see, but for some reason she's not as intrigued by it as I am. Saw it in the movie theater with my wife. She enjoyed it, but I don't think she liked it as much as I do. I love this movie. I think the last scene of the film is very, very well done, and I like how it ends. And there we go. 94, we find Galaxy Quest, which is a great, it's not a parody, it's kind of an homage to Star Trek and their fans and stuff like that. Stars Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, the guy I love from Moon, I forgot his name already. Tony Shalhoub is in it. Let me get this down. I get the entire cast list. Alan Rickman is in it as well. So here we go. Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman, Tim Allen, Sam Rockwell, Tony Shalhoub, Justin Long, Rainn Wilson, Missy Pyle, Enrico Colantoni, Daryl Cool Mitchell, Patrick Breen, Heidi Swerdberg, Kevin McDonald, Dean Basher, Corbin Bleu, Susan Egan. There's any other there's a bunch of other people, but they're not really all that famous. But that's it. Came out in 1999, and basically it's a bunch of those actors I said. Daryl Cho Mitchell and Rockwell and Rickman and Allen and Sigourney Weaver and Shalhoub are all members of a former hugely popular 1960s, 70s. Actually, I think it was 70s because it takes place in the 90s. So about a 20-year difference would be about right. A great science fiction TV show during the 1970s that was a huge hit, had a huge fan base, a huge fan base, conventions and cosplay and all that stuff. And after the show ended, the actors really didn't have much else to do. And so they have to go around and keep living the roles of these iconic characters, and it gets to them after a while. It takes a jab at all the actors in Star Trek as well. Alan Rickman is playing the guy that has like the has to wear a makeup thing on his head, and he's like an alien sort of thing, but he's sick of doing that, the one line that he's popular for, because he's done Shakespeare in England and stuff like that. And then Tim Allen is sort of the William Shatner-esque sort of character who is a pompous asshole sort of thing. But basically what happens is, so they're at a convention and Tim Allen is approached by a strange, bizarre guy who wants to, take him on a trip, and he's like, it'll cost you this much money. So they come pick him up, and the trip is into outer space, and they're aliens who had caught the TV shows that get shot into outer space. They get shown on Earth, but the message of the satellite things get sent out into space. That's a common theme that's been in Explorers and a few other stuff as well. So basically, the aliens caught whiff of these TV shows and watched them and believed they were real life things, that this guy and his crew were defeating the bad guys. And these aliens have an issue with bad guys, and they think that if they can get Tim Allen and his crew to come and do their thing and save the galaxy again, not knowing that they're actors and that it's all special effects, stuff like that. The aliens have built the spaceship exactly as it was in the TV show, down to every little nook and cranny that was in the TV show as well. And so Tim Allen has to convince the others to come join him on this thing, and they have to play heroes for real. So it's kind of a Three Amigos-esque sort of story as well, but it is a really fun film and very entertaining, and a wonderful cast, and just a really good homaging and a little poking fun at the Star Trek fandom and Star Trek itself and the actors involved with that. It's a great and wonderful film, and I've used the word wonderful so many times, but you know what? I don't care. This is my show. I'll do whatever I want. Galaxy Quest number 94. 93 is a film that I saw for free. It was the first radio competition I ever won in the mid 90s. After I graduated from college, I was sort of in a weird sort of trying to find a job, but also just trying to recover from doing 12 years of education and just trying to find my footing and ground. And I just gotten broken up by my girlfriend earlier in the year in 95. So I was just sort of trying to find my ground. And I had seen ads for this movie, and I heard that the radio station that's up in Towson, which is not that far from where I grew up, so I could get there by walking or by the bus. So I would go up there. There's movie theaters where I'd go to the movies there. There's Borders and Barnes and Noble that I can go, and there's a mall. So it'd be a place I would go when, I was looking for jobs. If I wanted to just get out of the house and do stuff, I could go up there and do things. But there was free tickets to a sneak preview of this movie. So I picked it up. I went to the sneak preview, and they were giving out prizes if you knew trivia. So I knew the answers to one of the trivia questions, and I won a prize pack that included the soundtrack, the novel, and maybe a T-shirt or something. I don't remember if it was a T-shirt, but it was a soundtrack of the novel at least for this movie. And the funny thing is, ironically, about 3 years later, I started working for that same radio station, and I became the MC who would do these movie premieres and would give out these prizes and make the trivia questions. This movie is number 93. It's The First Wives Club. Phenomenal female empowerment movie. Amazing cast. The leads, Goldie Hawn, Bette Midler, Diane Keaton. You've got Dan Hedaya, who's wonderful in the film as usual. You also have I hate that I can't remember because other actors that I absolutely adore are in this as well. You even get Elizabeth Berkley, who at the time was coming off of I guess it was 96 then, was coming off of Showgirls, and she did not have a very good time. And she was able to play a really nice comedic role here instead. So let's just get the cast list up here first. Wives Club cast. There we go. Goldie Hawn, Diane Keaton, Bette Midler, as I said. Sarah Jessica Parker, that right is in it too. Maggie Smith is in it. Hugh Wilson, Stockard Channing, Jennifer Dundas, Marcia Gay Harden, Dan Hedaya, Elizabeth Berkley, Rob Reiner, Timothy Oliphant, Victor Garber, Bronson Pinchot, Stephen Collins, Ivana Trump, Eileen Heckert, Ari Greenberg, Olivia Goldsmith, who is the writer of the book, has a cameo role in it, James Naughton, Phil Bosco, J.K. Simmons, Jon Stewart, Kathy Lee Gifford, Greg Edelman, Edward Hibbert, Dinah Spivey, Kate Burton, Teresa DePriest, Peter Franchette, Mark Nelson. It's just a great thing. And actually, the funny thing is about Jon Stewart, his role actually was cut out. I forgot about that. He was a role that became, was cut out by a deleted scene, but he was in it at one time. But the premise is fairly simple. There were 4 girls who were friends: Stockard Channing, Diane Keaton, Bette Midler, and Goldie Hawn in college. They thought they were going to rule the world. They were young and whatever, and they all got pretty much what they wanted. They all got married into, highly rich families. Stockard Channing married into a rich family. Diane Keaton married into a rich family. Bette Midler married into, Bette Midler had connections to like the mafia already, but her husband was a successful television appliance repair place sort of thing. And Goldie Hawn is an actress. And then as they were getting older and the men were going through midlife crisis, the men all left them for younger women. Heather Locklear's in it also. And Stockard Channing couldn't take it, so she committed suicide. And she wrote letters to Bette Midler, Diane Keaton, and Goldie Hawn, who hadn't seen each other since college. And they got back together, and their friendship grew back out of it. And so they all discovered that they're all in the same boat. So they decided it was time to get revenge on their husbands, to make things right. Who they left them for younger women. Well, now it's time to show you that you shouldn't have fucked with us, and we're going to fuck with you right back. And that's exactly what it is. Bronson Pinchot is great, doing another sort of crazy accent, and a great thing. Maggie Smith is phenomenal with her. My favorite scene is where she's talking to Sarah Jessica Parker, who is the woman who Dan Hedaya left Bette Midler for. And Maggie Smith is like the grande dame of Hollywood, of New York society, and Sarah Jessica Parker wants to be part of that society. So Maggie Smith is friends with Goldie Hawn and all that, and so they decide to utilize her for their plans. And there's one sequence where she has the name of an interior decorator that she wants to give to Sarah Jessica Parker, and Sarah Jessica Parker is just easing into it, and she grabs it, and Maggie Smith's fingers just pop open. It is one of the greatest scenes, just a very subtle sequence. I just love it. She's got it down, and then Sarah Jessica Parker takes it, and her fingers just go up like that. It is just, I don't know why I like that, but it's just, and the quintessential Maggie Smith look on her face of disappointment and humor at the same time when that happens. It's great. She's great in this. All of them are great in this. It's such a great movie. It's very female empowered. It's a lot of fun. And Dan Hedaya, as always, is fantastic in it too. And it's just fun, spectacular stuff. And the fact that I saw it for free helped out as well. First Wives Club is number 93. 92 is a movie that came out during COVID in 2020 that I did not really think much about until I started seeing more and more ads for it and people saying how good it was. So one day, because I was laid off from work during COVID for 6 months. I was at home while my kids were doing their Zoom school stuff. And one day, after they were done, I was just kind of bored. My daughter was off doing her own thing. My son was kind of bored. So I said, "You want to watch some movies?" So we ended up watching a couple movies. And one of them was Free Guy, because the premise behind it is something that he could get behind. Two computer programmers have created a wonderful new computer game, but it gets stolen by a asshole video game designer played by Taika Waititi, who uses their AI sort of stuff that they created and puts it into like a Grand Theft Auto sort of shoot 'em up, which becomes one of the most popular video games of all time. But because he stole their sort of AI sort of thing, the NPCs start having their own little personalities that kick out. And soon they basically are fully cognizant of everything that's going around for them. And we follow the lives of the NPCs in this video game. Ryan Reynolds, Joe Keery, Taika Waititi, trying to remember the Comer, Julie Comer, I think. Let's see. I think it's Julie Comer. Jodie Comer. Ryan Reynolds, Jodie Comer, Joe Keery, Taika Waititi, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has a cameo in it. John Krasinski has a cameo in it. Channing Tatum. And then you get a bunch of YouTubers also. Laser Beam. Hugh Jackman has a cameo. Chris Evans has a cameo. Dan TTM. Jacksepticeye. Tina Fey. Alex Trebek. Sophie Levy. Charlotte Levy. Laura Spencer. Just a whole bunch. And then, as I said, just a whole bunch of other YouTubers and stuff like that as well. And just, it is such a fun, who plays the black cop? Lil Rel Howery plays this, but it's a wonderful film. Ryan Reynolds is fantastic in it. Taika Waititi's great in it. Joe Keery and Jodie Comer are wonderful in it. And just a lot of in-jokes with, pop culture and video games and YouTubers and streamers and stuff like that. It's an experience, and it's great to see something different and new. And it was a real good tonic for the bad stuff that was the COVID era. Number 91 is a film that I saw on Thanksgiving for the first time ever back in 98, 97, something like that. 98, 97. Anyway, I remember distinctly because I was living at home still, and my mom was married to my stepdad, Roger. And so we were all living under the same house, and Thanksgiving dinner was just going to be the three of us. And I think Roger's mom was going to come over also. It was going to be us four. So mom was making the Thanksgiving dinner. And this was before I was really into watching football, because at that time, I don't think I think we had the Ravens, but they weren't playing on Thanksgiving. So I didn't care to watch the other football games, which would be different now. I love watching all the football games now on Thanksgiving, but back then I didn't care. So I went to, all the cable networks, because they do movie marathons and they do marathons of TV shows, stuff like that. And it was like USA or TNT or TBS or something like that was doing movie marathons. And one of those films was number 91. It was the first time I'd ever seen it. So I hadn't seen it until like the 1990s, is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Now, the original musical version of the Roald Dahl movie, of the Roald Dahl book with Gene Wilder is this Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's a musical, but it is also a outstanding musical. Gene Wilder gives an absolutely amazing performance as Willy Wonka. The movie is quite bizarre. Very 70s psychedelic aspects to certain parts of the movie as well. So you get kind of this kind of really amalgamation of musical, psychedelia, children, and Gene Wilder in a candy factory. So it's just this kind of weird thing, but based on the Roald Dahl book, and Roald Dahl wrote the screenplay. So all that stuff that was going on was from Roald Dahl's melon up there. So, but it is great. It's better than I hate to say it because I love Tim Burton also, but it is better than Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now there are aspects of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that I like, but it is not enough that it made my list. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is not on my list. And it's not one of those that I go back and watch over and over again. But Willy Wonka is one of those that probably particularly closer to Thanksgiving, because that's when I first really saw it. That's when I pop it in when I'm just at home late or that my family's out camping. I don't feel like watching anything new. It's like, well, I just watch something different than I usually watch. And as I said, that's where the rewatchability comes in. And so Willy Wonka is number 91. Number 90, believe it or not, is also a Thanksgiving movie, but at a different Thanksgiving. This one, I think, was closer to 93, 94-ish. So I was home from college that time. My sister's wedding was in 93, and she wanted to have, it was November 20th, and she wanted to have a Thanksgiving reception thing because my brother-in-law, Adam, loves Thanksgiving dinner. It's his favorite meal of the year. So they had for the reception a sort of Thanksgiving dinner. So they got married on a Saturday, the 20th. And that next Thursday was going to be Thanksgiving. So my mom was like, we just had turkey. I don't want to make turkey. This is before she was dating Roger. It's just going to be the two of us. We're going to have pasta. I was like, okay, that's fine. That's great. So my mom did her own thing. And I was sitting and I was watching, as I said, the movie marathons they do on their shows. And this is when the first time I saw number 90, The Godfather, and also number 90, or also back from yesterday's episode, The Godfather Part 2. I saw them back to back in a marathon, and it was the version that Francis Ford Coppola edited into one massive movie, which because there are aspects of flashback from Godfather Part 2 that take place before the events of Godfather Part 1. So basically what he did was he made one massive film and remixed Godfather and Godfather Part 2 into one giant film in chronological order. And that's the version I watched. They aired it. Now, obviously, it was on cable network, so a lot of stuff was deleted out. There was commercial stuff like that. But it was my first time experiencing Coppola's Godfather saga. So after I saw that, I wanted to see more. I wanted to see it without the commercial. So that's when I actually sat down a little while later and watched the original ones in their original films. So I saw The Godfather by itself, Godfather Part 2 by itself, in their original aspects or whatever you want to call it, and without being cut and stuff like that. And that's how I liked it. But The Godfather's number 90. And the funny thing is, The Godfather, in my opinion, is better than Godfather Part 2. Now, people are going to fight me on that. They say Godfather Part 2 is better than Godfather. They're very close on par, but I like The Godfather better just because I think I like the storyline slightly more, because while I like Al Pacino's Michael Corleone, there's a lot of Michael Corleone in Godfather Part 2, whereas with Godfather, we get it broken up with James Caan and Marlon Brando in there as well. And so that helps out a lot to try to ease just the entirety that is Al Pacino, which, again, he's fantastic. He's great in it. Michael's a wonderful character, outstanding character, but Godfather produces a little too much Michael, and I wanted a little more of the family, so that's why Godfather is ahead of it. It also has one of the best endings to any movie I've ever seen, where Michael takes care of business, and it is, you all know the scene. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. The last scene of the movie where he's taking care of business. It's phenomenal. It's great. It wraps everything up in a bow, and it is fantastic, and Godfather's number 90. Number 89 is another interesting story. It's kind of why I wanted to split up the show, because I want to get into more of the stories and stuff like that. And also, these are my top 100 movies of all time, so that's kind of a big deal. Number 89 is something that's connected and will always forever be connected to my honeymoon. Pirates of the Caribbean came out in 2003. It had to have been, because that was when I got married. And we got married in October of 2003. And Finding Nemo, which I talked about yesterday, is also reminiscent. I remember that from my honeymoon also, and I'll explain all this in a second. So we got married October 4th, 2003. Yes, that means it's our 20th wedding anniversary this year. I know that. My wife knows that. We're all good on that. Anyway, well, we got married. And on a Saturday, my wife decided that she wanted to wait to go on our honeymoon till the next Thursday. So we went into work for a couple days, and then we took off. I took off from Thursday to the next Friday, even though we were coming back on a Wednesday, and I knew I was going to need time to recover because we were going to San Francisco for our honeymoon. So we got married, and then we go back to work for a couple days. This is when I was working at Diamond, and then I took off for a week. And my wife didn't. She took off only through Wednesday, and then she went back to work on Thursday and Friday, and she said that was a terrible idea on my part, where I stayed home and rested up. Anyway, so we go to San Francisco. We have a wonderful hotel right on Fisherman's Wharf, right next to Ghirardelli Square. We also have a view of the Golden Gate Bridge from our honeymoon suite, and it's right there, Fisherman's Wharf. So we had all kinds of adventures, did all kinds of fun things in San Francisco. But one of the things we did was we had the sort of the pay-per-view sort of movies in our room. So like after dinner and before bedtime, we just were kind of chilling out, relaxing, just enjoying stuff after our big adventuresome day. So we watched, rented a couple movies, because the pay-per-view that popped up in October were films that came out in that previous summer, which we were too busy with wedding preps and like that we didn't really go out to the movies all that much during 2003. And so we wanted to see these movies, Finding Nemo and Pirates of the Caribbean, which is number 89. Pirates of the Caribbean is number 89. But we wanted to see these movies. And so we watched them both, one day, one the next day, from our hotel room on our honeymoon. And so that was my first experience with Pirates of the Caribbean, which is number 89. It's Johnny Depp. It's Orlando Bloom. It's Keira Knightley. It's Jeffrey Rush. And it's based on the Disney ride, believe it or not, because it's a Disney film, but it is a swashbuckling pirate fun film. Johnny Depp creating an iconic character in Captain Jack Sparrow, and still the best Pirates of the Caribbean movie of all time, and is number 89 on the list. Just a great, fun, swashbuckling, high seas adventure. Good humor, great action sequences, a little scary with the ghost pirates or pirate ghosts, however you want to go with that. And, just great performances all through the movie. Even Orlando Bloom, believe it or not. Pirates of the Caribbean is number 89. Number 88 is The Incredibles Part 2. The Incredibles is one of the best Pixar movies of all time, and it took them like 10, 12 years to do a sequel, but the sequel was just as good as the first one. First one still is a little bit higher up on the list, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but The Incredibles 2 is still not a bad movie. We get to learn a little bit more about Jack, their baby, and find his powers, and the sequence where he's fighting with a crafty raccoon is outstanding. And the storyline is pretty good, where the main male character has to I said his name there for a second. It's not C. Thomas Howell, but it's the guy who played Coach. Anyway, he has to step back because he wants to be the superhero, but his wife is the one that this corporation wants to be the face of the superhero. So she has to do all the work, all the heavy lifting, and she's portrayed by Holly Hunter. And so the dad has to play the role of the maternal parent, and seeing his adventure through that. Also seeing his daughter Violet having to work her way through her love life and stuff like that. Samuel L. Jackson's got a voice cameo in this as well. Not cameo, it's a voice role in it. And I gotta find out. I know. I'm just gonna write Coach. I'm going to kill myself if I answer that one. Craig T. Nelson. Oh my God. So Craig T. Nelson is the voice of Mr. Incredible. Holly Hunter is the voice of his wife. So it's great. And the sequel is just as good as the first one. Different storyline. And for me, the first one is still better, but the second one does have its moments, and that's why it's number 88 on my list. 87 is another amazing Bill Murray performance. Harold Ramis directs the hell out of this movie, and it's matches up with a holiday, because I love holiday stuff. I'm a holiday guy. I love holiday movies, and I love holiday stuff. This is a holiday that no one expected a movie to be made about, but it is now one of the most popular movies out there and is also one that everybody watches on the day. Number 87 is Groundhog Day. It's Groundhog Day. And the premise itself should have pushed it up a little higher. In retrospect, thinking about it, I probably could have moved it up in front of some of these other ones, but Groundhog Day needed to slot it somewhere. And when I was doing the list, I wasn't really thinking too much. But Groundhog Day is a film I watch on Groundhog Day, obviously. And it's got Bill Murray, it's got Andie MacDowell, it's got Chris Elliott, it's got Brian Doyle Murray in it. Harold Ramis has a cameo in it. And the premise is just so brilliant and has a little bit of a sci-fi edge to it, where Bill Murray plays the typical Bill Murray sort of role, the egotistical, sarcastic sort of character like he played in Ghostbusters and like he played in Scrooged and in Stripes. But in this case, he's now a weatherman for a weather station in, I think, Buffalo, New York, I believe. And he is been sent to go to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, which is where the groundhog is, every Groundhog Day to report from there because it is a big cultural event, even though no one knows why, because the groundhog really doesn't predict anything. But that's besides the point. It's a fun big party and stuff like that. So he goes down to Punxsutawney, and there's a blizzard that is incoming, but he's been telling everybody it's not going to hit Punxsutawney or any part here. It's going to go past us. It's not Buffalo. He's in Pennsylvania also. It's going to miss us. It's going to head north of us. It's not going to affect us in any way. So they go, and Andie MacDowell plays his producer. It's her first sort of job as producer, and Chris Elliott is his long-suffering cameraman. And they're going to do this event. And Bill Murray does Bill Murray. He flirts with Andie MacDowell, even though she doesn't like him very much. And Chris Elliott throws his sarcastic edges and asides to him as well. And they get to it, and they film it. But Bill Murray is so tired of doing it. He's doing it like 8 or 10 years, and he's tired of doing it because he doesn't feel like he's being treated with respect. Pittsburgh is where he's from. He doesn't feel like he's being treated with respect, and he thinks that if people see him interviewing a groundhog, it's going to ruin his career trajectory. So he's pretty much said that this is the last one he's going to do. So he does it half-assedly and says, "We're done," and leaves. And they leave, and as they're driving back to Pittsburgh, they get caught in the blizzard that wasn't supposed to hit, because weathermen were wrong a lot. So they end up having to go back to Punxsutawney and end up spending that because they'd already set up. They'd already were going to spend the night there just so that, Andie MacDowell decided to give them hotel rooms so that because they were going there the day before Groundhog Day and get them in there and was going to say maybe we should hang around and party with them, after the groundhog thing. Bill Murray didn't want to do that, but now they do have their hotel rooms still in place. So they go back and then Bill Murray goes to bed. And he wakes up the next morning and is like, okay, time for me to head home. But it's Groundhog Day again. And he's confused by it. He remembers doing Groundhog Day, but nobody else remembers doing it. So he's a little confused about what's going on. And then he just accepts it as like, maybe I've just dreamed it or something like that. So same things happen that happened in the previous one that he's remembering. Like, that's weird, that it's deja vu sort of thing happening. So then he goes to bed. And he wakes up, and it's Groundhog Day again. Now it's getting ridiculous. Now he's trying to figure out what's going on. So now we get into the more master. He's trying to figure out what's going on. And eventually he determines and realizes that he's got to be in some sort of time loop and doesn't know how to get out of it. So he decides to go into his baser roles and drink and party and do all kinds of stuff. He ends up getting arrested, and then he wakes up the next morning, and it's Groundhog Day again, and he escaped going in jail. And he's the only one that remembers it going on. So from that point on, he realizes, okay, I'm stuck in some sort of loop. Let's have some fun. So he goes crazy, starts having sex with women and dating women there and stealing stuff and eating all he can eat and just being a total child, hitting on Andie MacDowell even more and more, really putting the pressure on her. And he keeps waking up over and over again, and everything resets, and no one remembers anything except for him. And then he starts getting to a bit depressed, a little bit of a depression, because he realized that, oh my God, I'm reliving the same day over and over again. And I've done everything, and I need to get out of this because I'm tired of doing this. I don't want to do this anymore. It was fun for a while, but I want to move on with my life. But he can't. So he starts to get a little suicidal because he thinks maybe death is the only way to escape it. So he commits suicide and then wakes up the next morning, back at Groundhog Day, commits suicide again and again, over and over again, and goes, well, before the suicide, but he tries to win Andie MacDowell's heart. So there's a whole bit there where he's trying to win her heart, and that doesn't work. And then he gets suicidal, and then he gets acceptance. He realizes that, okay, I'm God, and I can do whatever I want. So let me do what I can do because I'm doing the same. So he learns how to play piano, and he starts learning more about the people in town, and he changes for the better. And that's your premise for Groundhog Day. You pretty much knew about what it was anyway, but I figured I'd love the movie a lot, so I just wanted to explain that. Number 86, I'm going to get probably a lot of shit for because when I first saw this, I had the same exact opinion that most people have about this movie. But after watching it over and over again around Christmas time, because it's a Christmas movie, hints, I began to realize that if you just let your mind go, this film is absolutely hilarious. It's shot phenomenally well. Wonderful music, great special effects, great makeup, great set design, even though it's based on a beloved half-hour cartoon from a beloved writer named Dr. Seuss. My number 86 is the live-action version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Go ahead, yell at me all you want. I had the same thought you did when I first saw it in 2000, 2001, whatever it was. I thought it was awful. I thought it was a waste of time. Jim Carrey absolutely was hamming it up, was a waste. Ron Howard made a total misjudgment about this. And then, I was working for the radio station at that time. We were doing events at like Best Buy, not Best Buy. It was like Costco and BJ's and Sam's Club, stuff like that. And we were centered near a TV area around Christmas time. And they were showing The Grinch on all the computers because on all the TVs because it just come out on DVD. And while we're waiting for people to come, I'm sitting there, I'm watching it, and I'm looking at it. It's like, you know what? The set design is really amazing. It's very Dr. Seuss, which is what it was supposed to be. The makeup is very Dr. Seuss. And even Jim Carrey going his full-on crazy, insane sort of way he does stuff, he actually does an endearing performance, an amazing performance, and he's supported by an incredible supporting cast. And while I look up the supporting cast, Ron Howard, who directed it, absolutely killed it. He directed it so good. As the set design, the makeup, the James Horner music, the just everything, the build up when the Grinch realizes that there's more to Christmas before he has his little heart issue. Just the sun comes and he has the chorus in the background and the sky's clear and it's just like he's seeing stuff. It's amazing. So Jim Carrey is the Grinch, Taylor Momsen, Christina Baranski, Jeffrey Tambor, Josh Ryan Evans, Molly Shannon, Bill Irwin, Clint Howard, Mindy Sterling, Bryce Dallas Howard, Rick Baker, Jeremy Howard, Deep Roy, Anthony Hopkins is the narrator, Kelly is the dog, Max, Rance Howard, so it's a whole family affair. Vern Troyer, who else we got in here? And there's a lot of other different characters as well. Mary Stein, Frank Welker, Rain Pryor, stuff like that. So it gives and I understand why people don't like it because the original cartoon basically was there's a Grinch. He hates the Who's down in Whoville. They love Christmas so much, so he decides after they go to bed, he's going to steal Christmas, and their lives are going to be miserable. There's your story. But then he realizes that there's more to Christmas than presents and stuff like that, has a change of heart, and goes down and becomes friends with the Who's. There's your cartoon. So that would be too quick of a movie. So Ron Howard had to stretch it out a little bit, so they give us a complete backstory about what caused the Grinch to hate Christmas. more about the denizens of Whoville. We learn the mayor of Whoville and the postal service of Whoville, and we work with members of the different shops and stuff like that, and the different characters and all that stuff. But it is an absolutely stunning film. It is a terrific Christmas movie. I still watch it regularly around the Christmas season. And I urge you to give it a second chance. I know the storyline is a little off, and I know Jim Carrey's a little off, it is a little insane craziness, but it works totally 100%. I use a lot of the jokes that he says in this on a daily basis sort of thing. And I read How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the actual book by Dr. Seuss, to my kids on Christmas Eve every year. Even now when they're teenagers, they still want me to do it. And I use the Jim Carrey Grinch voice when we're reading the Grinch's role. So How the Grinch Stole Christmas live action version, outstanding. Give it a second chance, as I said, or even a third chance. It took me a couple chances to say, this film isn't so bad, and now it's one of my favorites. It's number 86. 85, we have a film that I will always forever connect with my father. My father's still alive, so it's not like it's a big deal. But this is the one that one of the there's like 2 or 3 films that he and I just sat down and watched, just the two of us, when I was older. And this is one of them. It's Midnight Run. Robert De Niro, Charles Grodin, and Joe Pantoliano. And it's a great action comedy. John Ashton's in it also. It's a great action comedy directed by the guy who directed Beverly Hills Cop. And it is just a outstanding action comedy. Yaphet Kotto's in it also. An outstanding action comedy. Lots of action, lots of shooting, lots of humor, lots of jokes that continue through the whole movie, recurring jokes that continue through the whole movie, and a plethora of the F word as well. But it's just the basic premise is Charles Grodin is an accountant for a mobster who has stolen mobsters' money that doesn't belong to him, and is trying to run away and get away from getting killed by the mobster. He jumps bail because I guess he was arrested at some point. He jumps bail, and that's not really bail because it's more of a bounty hunter sort of thing. And there's a bounty put out on him by this mafia guy. So this bail bonds sort of group decides they want to make some money off him. So they send their best guy, played by Robert De Niro, who was a former police officer who was busted for a crooked police officer scam that he was not involved in, but he was the scapegoat for. And it was perpetrated by this mobster. So he's going to make money, but he also kind of want to screw over the mobster as well. So he ends up having to go to find the Charles Grodin's character and bring him back to Los Angeles for the bail bonds that they used to let him get out of jail or something like that. I forget the actual minutia of that. But so he has to go to New York to get him. And it's a midnight run, meaning he's got to get him out by midnight, by like the end of the week or whatever. So De Niro thinks it's going to be easy. Fly to New York, find him, fly him back to California. Boom, he'll be done in a day or two. Doesn't work out that way because Charles Grodin claims he's absolutely afraid of flying, and causes a ruckus on the airplane that they get kicked off of the airplane. And so they have to travel cross country while being pursued by the mob, by the FBI, who wants him also, and also by other bounty hunters sent by the bail bondsman, who doesn't think that Robert De Niro's character is going to make it in time for the midnight run. It's an all-out road trip action comedy. Amazing film, well worth your checking out. I just need to check something out here real quick. Actually, no, it would be later because it's not due out till later. Number 84 is a little bit more closer to home, and is another musical, and is the most accessible movie by a director who is not known for accessible movies. It's John Waters' Hairspray. The original version. The original version, Hairspray, came out 87, 88. It is a musical-esque. It's not really musical because the characters do not break out into song. It basically is about teenagers, because back in the 1960s, Baltimore had a really good TV series, hugely popular TV series that was sort of like a dance fever sort of thing, where kids would dance. It would be a group of kids would dance for like half an hour, and there would be all kinds of inner workings of the show to make it interesting for the viewers and introduce new dances, and the kids would want to do that stuff. So there's lots of 1960s style bebop and that type of humor, and it's also kind of a fairy tale. It's basically about an overweight girl who becomes obsessed with the TV show, or the Hairspray show, is a good dancer in her own right, wants to get on the show, gets on the show, steals the most popular boy's heart, and then also learns about racial inequality in Baltimore in the 1960s and tries to desegregate the dance show and gets embroiled with a racist television owner. It's Divine's last film. Divine plays 2 roles in this. His typical cross-dressing role he always plays, and he actually was able to play himself as a male in a regular role like that. Ricky Lake is in it too. I just got to give you this cast list of the original Hairspray. The music is great. It's outstanding. It's a wonderful story. It's filmed entirely in Baltimore. And yes, indeed, John Waters is in the movie as well as a character named Dr. Fredrickson. Divine plays 2 roles, including the mother of the main character as well, and also as the racist television owner. Ricky Lake is the main character on that. Leslie Ann Powers is her best friend. Deborah Harry and Sonny Bono play the parents of the most popular girl who are trying to ruin Tracy's chance at winning the dance competition. Jerry Stiller plays Tracy's dad, who's married to Divine as a woman, which is great. Michael St. Gerard is the crush that Ricky Lake has. Vitamin C, I guess is her name, is Amber Von Tussle. Okay, I didn't know her name was Vitamin C now. Ruth Brown, Sean Thompson, Clayton Prince, Pia Zadora, Mink Stoll, Josh Charles, who I know his uncle. And just a lot of local celebrity sort of types in there. Who else? It's the guy, Rick Ocasek from the Cars is in it also. And it's an amazing film. And it's a great music and dancing, and is about racial equality, and also has that sort of John Waters sort of quality, but it is not as insane as John Waters' previous films. This is his most accessible film, and it became hugely popular, and so popular that John Waters decided to follow the trend of turning movies into musicals. So he turned Hairspray into an actual Broadway musical, won a bunch of awards, had a great I forget who the songwriter is, but he's the guy that wrote the songs for Team America and South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut, and is a good movie composer in his own right also. And he wrote and composed the songs for the Hairspray musical. And then, as is the case with this trend also, they make a movie version of the musical. So they made a movie version that had John Travolta playing the role of Edna's sister or mother, and some unknowns in the other main roles, and there's some other big characters. Christopher Walken and John Travolta are the married couple that raised Tracy, with Travolta being cross-dressing, stuff like that. So it's a groundbreaking movie. It's different than anything in John Waters' films. If there's any movie of John Waters you should see, it's definitely this one. It's my favorite John Waters movie. Serial Mom's up there as well, as is Pecker, but I think I already talked about those as well. But this is my favorite John Waters movie. And real quick, everyone probably knows the story anyway, but I'm going to tell it again. For those who don't, I actually met John Waters once. Radio station thing again. We were around Halloween. We were giving away 101 pumpkins, and we were at a grocery store. And I was on top of the pumpkin pile, handing them down to people who were handing them to people who were coming up to get their free pumpkin. I saw John Waters walk out of the grocery store because it's not very hard to miss. He's not very hard to miss. So I scream, "Hey, Mr. Waters, do you want a free pumpkin?" And he's very polite. He smiles and waves and says, "No, I'm good," and kept on going. And that was it. I didn't bother him anymore. I didn't, and nobody really probably knew he was there. Nobody went to take pictures of him. No one tried to approach him. It was just like he was a normal guy, but I just happened to notice it was John Waters. I offered him pumpkin. He turned me down very politely, and then we moved on with our lives. No fanboying, anything like that. It was great, and it's a story I love to tell, and I'm going to continue to tell all the time because I absolutely love it, and it's a true story. And I'm glad it happened to me because it was so cool. Hairspray is my 84th movie. I'm actually glad that I'm doing this because I'm an hour in and I'm only at number 83. Good thing I broke this up here. Number 83 is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. To me, the final Indiana Jones movie. The Crystal Skull had a lot of issues. It could have been good, but there were a lot of problems with it. So I don't really classify that as an Indiana Jones movie. And then Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny has the potential to be a good movie. And again, as I said, this isn't a set list. I'm going to probably go see it eventually. Probably not in the movie theaters, but I'll probably see it when it comes out on Blu-ray. And if I like it, it might pop up on my list next time I do this list. Or it'll just be like, okay, this is okay. Or it could be, this is a god-awful movie. But Indiana Jones Last Crusade, for me, is the last true Raiders of the Lost Ark or Indiana Jones film. As I said, we'll see what happens with Dial of Destiny. But right now, it is the only true one. Because the three of them came out in the 80s, 81, 85, 89. And this one is actually, I think, probably... No, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's up there. It's got Indiana Jones meeting up with his father, played by Sean Connery. Absolutely wonderful casting. Brings back a whole bunch of other characters from previous Indiana Jones movies. And the prize in this one is the Holy Grail, which is a really good, interesting idea for a story. Spielberg directed it. George Lucas wrote the story as they did the other ones. So this one was sort of brought it back. I like Temple of Doom, but it's not one of my favorites. And I don't think Temple of Doom made my list, but it's not one of my favorites. But this one sort of brought back to what I really liked about it. The cliffhanging action sequences, the great batonage between Indy and his father, Sean Connery, is what really makes this film ahead of its game. So Indiana Jones and Last Crusade, we also get Sallah coming back from Raiders of the Lost Ark, played by John Rhys Davies. And so we got him, and their batonage also is really good too. So Indiana Jones Last Crusade, great film. To me, is the perfect capper to the Indiana Jones saga because it was the last time that he really could do it and not be considered too old, because Crystal Skull came out in like 2000s, I think. And now this one is just Dial of Destiny's when he's like 90 years old, not 80, but like 80 years old anyway. So we'll see what happens with Dial of Destiny. But right now, to me, Indiana Jones Last Crusade is the last true great Raiders of the Lost Ark Indiana Jones movie, and it's at number 83. 82 is a semi-musical. It's a John Landis film based on a Saturday Night Live sketch from early on. It's got Mr. Dan Aykroyd. It's got Mr. John Belushi. It's got Carrie Fisher in it. It's got John Candy in it. It's got, who else do we got in it? Who else do we got on it? It's got a ton of musicians. It's the Blues Brothers, baby. Steven Spielberg, even though he didn't direct it, John Landis directed. Steven Spielberg shows up at the end of the movie in an actual role. It's not as Steven Spielberg. He plays a character, which is great. And there's Nazis and car crashes and car chases and blues music. And oh my God, is this movie great. Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, John Landis actually portrays, has a role in it. Aretha Franklin, Murphy Dunn, Lou Marini, Alan Rubin, all these great blues musicians in it. Steve Cropper, Matt Murphy, Tom Malone, Donald Duck Dunn, James Brown, Frank Oz, Willie Hall, Kathleen Freeman, Carrie Fisher, Steve Lawrence, Cab Calloway, Jeff Morris, Ray Charles, John Candy, Henry Gibson, Charles Napier, Edward Dono, Shaka Khan, John Goodman, Stephen Williams. Actually, John Goodman, he's in the sequel, so skip that. Paul Rubens, Joe Morton. It's just an outstanding cast, and it is such a great movie. It is a musical. There is musical numbers, but you get the musical numbers sung by the likes of a Ray Charles or an Aretha Franklin or a Cab Calloway. And then you also get Dan and John singing as well as their Blues Brother characters, which were hugely popular on the Saturday Night Live sketch. That was multiple sketches, I should say, about that. And it's just an amazing film. The massive car chase scene that makes up the last third of the movie is one of the greatest car chases ever filmed as they enter Chicago. And then the finale, as Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi are racing against time to save the orphanage they were raised in by dropping this money. But they have the entirety of the U.S. Army. They've got Illinois Nazis. They've got redneck country guys. They've got the police. They got all these guys converging on this building as they're trying to get up there to try to save this orphanage. And it is outstanding. And even though there might be cameos, John Candy brings his John Candy game to this. Carrie Fisher brings her game to this as well. But this is Danny and Johnny's film, and it's just outstanding. It is so good, and they got real blues musicians to come and play the instruments. Everything from taking over a country bar to a car chase through a mall, which you've never seen before. Hard to describe. Blues Brothers is outstanding. It's number 82. 81 is another James Cameron movie. In all honesty, to be truth about it, even though there are other Cameron movies ahead of this one, I believe number 81, The Abyss, is James Cameron's best movie. Now, I got a whole bunch of James Cameron movies coming up, I know, in the top 100 because, as I said, despite what I think about the man himself, he does some good work. But The Abyss was a classic film, had no Bill Paxton, which is one of the only ones that Bill Paxton is not in, had no Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, but it had Chris Elliott doing a role that you were not expecting from him, that he re-emphasized with a few years later when he did Groundhog Day. But Chris Elliott has a really good role in this also. And it's got Ed Harris, who was at the time was not a very well-known actor, is the one who's anchoring this film, and he kills it. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio is in it. Mastriani, I think. Michael Biehn playing the bad guy in this as well is your main cast here. And Cameron loves himself some water, despite the fact that it has basically been torturing him his whole life. But this film is one he wrote when he was in college, and it took him forever to make the film. It's got an environmental, ecological message to it, but the premise is there is a facility deep under the water where crew are working on, I forget exactly, they're doing something with environmental stuff or whatever, and their facility is right at the base of a massive gorge that goes down for almost as deep as the Marianas Trench. And they discover that a nuclear submarine had crashed nearby there, and that the federal government is coming to try to recover the nuclear submarine and try to bring it back to the surface because it has the nuclear bombs in it. But there's more to it than that. And Michael Biehn's unscrupulous military guy, there's more to what he's doing down there. But they have to use that facility as like their base camp to try to reach this nuclear submarine. But that's not the entirety of the story. There's some weird readings that have started coming from the trench, and it jumps to a encounter that Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, I think it's Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. Let me just verify that because I don't want to give the actress the wrong credit. I think it's Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. No. It's not that Abyss. The Abyss. 1989. There it is. Let's see if I'm wrong. Mary Elizabeth. No, all right. Yeehaw. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. Yep. But yeah, so but she has an encounter with a weird sort of underwater alien sort of creature who's benevolent, is very kind. But Michael Biehn's paranoid sort of military guy finds it as a threat. And so we've got this sort of battle going on underwater. Now, not much else can be done on surface because on the surface, there is a massive hurricane that is getting ready to come over the area. So they're going to be trapped under the water here very soon. They might lose contact with some of the ships above them. And that's really about all the stuff that I'm going to tell you about, because it's just only something you have to see. Cameron literally bought a giant water tank, filled it with water, built the set in this underwater bit, and filmed it underwater, filmed all the scenes in this little facility underwater. This wasn't, they did not shoot the indoor scenes at some set in Hollywood, like that. No, he literally built the set in this water tank, filled it with water and then used computer effects to give it the trench look and stuff like that. And the computer effects were for 1989 were massive. The water alien thing that sort of comes out is the precursor to the T2 Terminator from 1992 that pops up a few years later. But it is a tense, insane film using some real life science and adding a little bit of alien intrigue in it as well. The Abyss is number 81. 80 is my favorite Captain America movie. Everyone likes The Winter Soldier. I like Civil War, mainly due to the fact that it's basically Avengers 2.5. You've got all the Avengers. Well, not all of them. Thor's not in it, and the Hulk's not in it. But you get Captain America. You get Captain America versus Iron Man. And they have two teams. Captain America's team has got the Falcon. It's got... who else has got it? Spider-Man makes his first appearance. Tom Holland. Spider-Man makes his first appearance in the MCU here. Hawkeye is in it. Jeremy Renner. Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch is in it. Joins as Team Captain America. And Bucky is also Team Captain America. Now, Team Iron Man, you have Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. You got Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. You've got Chadwick Boseman's first appearance as Black Panther as well. So you get the first appearance of Black Panther and the first appearance of Spider-Man in the MCU in this movie. You've got the Vision. Oh, also Captain America has Ant-Man, who was in his first movie and then joined Civil War. So you got Paul Rudd in there as well. And then you've got Vision, Black Panther, Black Widow, Spider-Man, Iron Man, War Machine, or Team Iron Man, and it's the big conflict between the two of those. Also, you get the brilliant introduction of Baron Zemo's character that culminated in the Falcon Winter Soldier movie, where we wanted to see the Baron Zemo dance sequence uncut. Let me just pull this up. All right, and just get the rest of this cast here, because this cast is amazing. Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Anthony Mackie, Sebastian Stan, Jeremy Renner, Scarlett Johansson, Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Rudd, Paul Bettany, Daniel Bruhl as Baron Zemo, Don Cheadle, Chadwick Boseman, Emily Van Camp as Sharon Carter, Tom Holland, Frank Grillo, Joe Russo, William Hurt, Martin Freeman, Alfre Woodard, Marissa Tomei, John Slattery, Hope Davis, and that's about all the major ones. But that is what Civil War is. It's why Haley Atwell makes a quick, brief appearance, because her character dies in it in the movie because of old age. It's not like anything surprising like that. But as I said, it's the first appearance of Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the MCU, the first appearance of Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther in the MCU, and it's just basically Avengers 2.5. But in the end, it has a brutal fight scene between Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, Sebastian Stan's Bucky, and Chris Evans' Captain America, and sets the stage for Infinity War and Endgame. Captain America Civil War is number 80, one of my favorite MCU movies of all time. Number 79 is a film that probably a lot of people are going to look twice at me and like, really? But it's Robert Rodriguez. It's a great imaginative family film that spun off a series of sequels and is getting a reboot coming out later this year. It's Spy Kids. And the premise itself is that, Antonio Banderas and Carla Gugino are parents of two children, and they are hiding a secret from their children. The secret they're hiding is that they were spies for opposing teams that fell in love and got married and had kids and decided that they were going to give up the spy game. But they do some consulting on the side here, but they are mostly there to take care of the children. But when they get called into one last case, a major case that they need to deal with, They put Cheech Marin, their uncle, comes to help them spend the day with them, but then the parents get kidnapped, and Cheech Marin has to reveal the secrets to the children, and he's going to try to get the children to a safe house because they're coming after the children. But the children end up learning about the spy game and end up helping their parents. Danny Trejo's in it, Terry Hatcher, Mike Judge, George Clooney, Tony Shalhoub, Robert, the guy who played Robert Patrick. I'm trying to get the name of the other main bad guy. Daryl Sabara and Alexa Vega are the kids. And I already gave Alan Cumming as Floop, who's the main bad guy. Emily Osment is in it also. Steve Buscemi. Oh no, that's later on. So is Ricardo Montalban, and so is Bill Paxton and Holland Taylor. Those are all later on. So this is other characters, but no, the main ones I already gave you the list there, and the remaining films have great cast that come in and join it. But the original Spy Kids to me is still my favorite one. It's got the Robert Rodriguez sort of kinetic, goofy sortness, and Antonio Banderas seems to be having the time of his life filming this film, doing something completely different. Another one of those I talked about. I did a blog for Bill Paxton's role in Weird Science. I also did a blog for Antonio Banderas' role in this film called Greatest Performances. It is phenomenal. He seems to be having an absolute blast making this film. The film itself looks like an entirely great film and a blast that everyone's having. And as I said, spun off a bunch of successful sequels with a bunch of other successful actors in it as well. 78, we come to what I believe is out of everything, believe it or not, and despite there might be a few other movies before him that star this actor, but I believe this is Chevy Chase's best film he ever made, Fletch. It's number 78, an action comedy in the sort of aspect of the Beverly Hills Cop. Harold Faltermeyer's score is very reminiscent of his Beverly Hills Cop score. It's outstanding. And Chevy Chase is in his element here, playing a newspaper columnist who writes a column anonymously where he tries to take down corruption in Los Angeles. So that way, he goes after powerful people so they don't go and hunt him down and stuff like that. In this case, he's working on how there's a huge drug trade down at the beach. He's trying to bust where the drugs are coming from. And he gets a little too close to the fire. But that's not the main story. That's one of the stories. The main story is while he is on the beach undercover as a sort of he's going for a drug addict also, and he's talking to the other drug dealers and addicts down there just to become friendly with them. They don't know he's a newspaper reporter. He's getting info from them, but they believe he is a druggie. He's approached by a rich guy played by Tim Matheson from Animal House and other films as well. And Tim Matheson has a request for him that's going to he'll be well compensated for it, because he himself also believes that Chevy Chase's character is just some low-life drug scum down there. Tim Matheson's character wants Chevy Chase to kill him. Not at that moment, but in a few days' time, because Tim Matheson claims that he is dying of cancer, and in about a month, it's going to get really, really bad, and it's terminal. He's due to die, and he cannot, if he dies of cancer, his family will not benefit from the life insurance that he's bought. So it's got to be, it's going to be more if he is murdered or suicide or something. Not suicide. If he's murdered, it'll be, the insurance will be a lot more for his family. So he comes up with a plan to have Chevy Chase kill him in a few days' time, and that way his family will get the money. Sounds good too, but no, something doesn't smell right to Chevy Chase's Fletch. So he goes into his newspaper instinct mode and goes and investigates the character and discovers that it's not exactly the story that he's telling is not exactly true, and it's connected to his drug story as well. Great cast behind him. Geena Davis, in one of her early roles, is in this film. As I said, Tim Matheson, George Wendt from Cheers, Richard Libertini, George Weiner, Dana Wheeler Nicholson, Joe Don Baker. Let's see who else. James Avery. I talk about George Wendt. Emmett Walsh. Some of the other ones. Larry Jenkins. Peggy Doyle. Alison LaPlaca. So yeah, but it's a great little cast, and it's a great movie. Sort of, as I said, sort of that sort of action comedy thing that Chevy Chase really wasn't known for, but it gives Chevy Chase a chance to portray multiple roles. Well, he's not multiple roles. He, as Fletch, he goes undercover using different personas and stuff like that to interview people so they don't know who he is. So you get to see some of his comedy as well. But Fletch is a great film, wonderful soundtrack by Harold Faltermeyer, and just a fun, quick, like hour-and-a-half movie if you want something quick, and it's funny and probably my favorite Chevy Chase movie. Number 77, we find probably my favorite Nicolas Cage movie, National Treasure. Jerry Bruckheimer produced it, so you got yourself an action bit here, and I'm not going to go through all the cast members, but Sean Bean plays the bad guy, and Nicolas Cage and John Voight, and I feel like I'm missing somebody else really huge. But there are, other cast members in it as well. Fine, because they are important roles to get into it. But it spawned a sequel and also a Disney Plus TV show. So let's see the National Treasure original one. We've got Nicolas Cage. Diane Kruger is the love interest. Sean Bean's the bad guy. Harvey Keitel is the FBI agent. Justin Bartha is the sidekick. John Voight, Christopher Plummer, Mark Pellegrino. Those are your main cast. I'm just seeing if there's anybody else big I'm missing. I think that's your main cast you need to know about. But it's a great film for people who like history, and it was filmed in Philadelphia and Washington and New York City. Those are the three main locations. And the premise basically is that Nicolas Cage's character comes from a long line of family members who are explained to him who are history lovers. And there is a secret treasure that has been rumored that the founding fathers had that could rival the Library of Alexandria, gold and information and all kinds of stuff buried somewhere in the United States. And they left clues behind for people to find them. So Christopher Plummer plays Nicolas Cage's grandfather. He became obsessed with trying to find it, but never did. And he passes on to Christopher Plummer's son, played by John Voight, who worked on it for a little bit also, but then realized that it was useless to do that. And then he tries to convince his son, played by Nicolas Cage, not to get involved with it, even though the grandfather talks directly to Nicolas Cage's character and gets him intrigued about it. So he's been following all these clues to try to find it. So eventually he hits a breakthrough and is able to go on this actual hunt as he starts following the clues that take him from Siberia to Washington, D.C., to Philadelphia, down to New York City. And along for the ride is Diane Kruger's was the National Library, one of her workers there, and his sidekick, played by Justin Bartha, as they go and try to outwit Sean Bean, who was a former partner of Nicolas Cage's, who also was excited about this and is hunting for the treasure too. So it's just a great action film it's a good action family film. There's a little bit of violence, but there's not a lot of major violence. There's some gun shooting and maybe a little punching here and there, but nothing too major or overtly violent. I think it's PG rated film, I think, also. And Sean Bean doesn't die. So that's an amazing thing also. But it's a very good historical sort of film to watch. It'd be great to watch around July 4th because it's got a lot of U.S. history in it, and just a great treasure hunting sort of film that, similar to Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, is one of those that gets me into thinking about these type of high adventure films. National Treasure is one of those. Speaking of Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, number 76 is Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, the original Mummy. It's another one of these sort of not clones, but sort of like has a similar sort of setup like Raiders Lost Ark and stuff like that, and also has a bit of National Treasure. Well, it came out before National Treasure did, but it's got sort of that high adventure, action-y, sort of a little bit of horror in it as well. This was Universal's attempt to try to reboot their Universal Monsters again. So they went The Mummy first, and they set it in the 1920s. And Brendan Fraser plays a member of the Foreign Legion who discovers the mysterious pyramid that everybody's looking for, that has a lot of treasure, including the Book of the Dead, and ends up getting arrested. And meanwhile, a librarian who's obsessed with the mummies with Egyptian history and stuff like that, decides to try to find this mystical book, and knows that the only one who knows where the location is Brendan Fraser's character. So she has to go try to save him. Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, John Hannah, Arnold Vosloo, Oded Fehr, Patricia Velasquez, Kevin J. O'Connor, Bernard Fox, Jonathan Hyde, is a very good cast. It is a fun action adventure, humorous, funny film with a little bit of romance thrown in there as well. But it is, a little bit of horror thrown in there too. But it is a amazing action film, and stuff like National Treasure and Pirates of the Caribbean owe a lot to this movie to sort of get you that feeling. So it's another one of those really good ones. And Brendan Fraser is adorable in it as well, as is John Hannah, to be honest. And Rachel Weisz is great as well. 75 is the movie that changed horror films for the good and set up a period of time for about 4 or 5 years where teenagers ruled the box office. Scream. Kevin Williamson, writer. Wes Craven, director. Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Jamie Kennedy, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, Drew Barrymore, Rose McGowan, Henry Winkler. Who else am I missing there? I think those are the main characters that we need to be aware of. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else I'm missing. I'm not, but what sets this movie different than other horror films is the fact that what they do is, when you come to these sort of slasher flicks, you've got your Friday the 13th and your Halloweens and your Nightmare on Elm Streets and stuff like that. Texas Chainsaw Massacres. You know who the killers are. You got your Freddy, your Jason, your Leatherface, and Freddy Krueger and stuff like that, Jason Voorhees. In Scream, they decided to take that slasher movie mentality, but also add a layer of mystery to it so you don't know who the killer is. And so everybody you see in the movie is a suspect, from the kids to the grown-ups. And you have to try to follow the clues as the kids try to follow the clues also. But it's also meta because these kids grew up on a steady diet of Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and Halloween's and stuff like that. So they know the rules of the horror movie. So it's a very meta horror film. And the fact that Wes Craven directed it, and he was one of the guys that they keep referring to with the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, is a very meta experience. But it was a rebirth for the slasher film, rebirth for the horror film, and just gave it sort of a really an oomph and impetus to keep moving and change things up. Scream is number 75. Man, I got 25 to go. I really want to get this done within 2 hours. I got to get done in about half an hour, to be honest. So let's try to get this taken care of. 74 is, no, you're fine. 74 is one of my favorite war movies. Came out a couple years ago. Just watched it with my daughter, who just walked down the basement to do her laundry. 1917. It's based on a tale that the director learned from his dad. It is a film done in one take. Obviously, there's editing and stuff like that done, but it follows two soldiers who are given a task that they have to make their way across no man's land into enemy territory and get to the other side, to the other army base that's over on the other side of the Allies, and warn them that the attack that they're going to make on the German front line in the morning is going to fail, because they know it's coming and they've got new weapons that are going to shred this army to smithereens. And since this is World War I, they don't have any access to talk to them anyway on the battlefield. So these two have to go on this journey, as I said, done in like one take to figure out what's going on. The cinematography is outstanding. Sam Mendes directed it. The shit out of it. Directed the shit out. It was outstanding. The visuals and the storyline itself is a very emotional roller coaster, which culminates in the great final sequence with one of the soldiers running through the field as all the other soldiers are running towards imminent death. It is great. It's got Benedict Cumberbatch has a cameo in it, as does Colin something or other. Has a role too. So 1917 is number 74. Number 73 is probably my favorite Disney movie of all time. And it's not a musical. It is an action-adventure animated film, which I wish Disney would do kind of more of. And no, musicals are the ones that sell, and this movie didn't do as good as other ones, but it has a great pedigree with Mike Mignola, one of my favorite comic book artists who created Hellboy, being the art director on this. And the storyline is Atlantis, the Lost Empire. 73, Michael J. Fox as the main voice of the main character is sent on a task by his grandfather to locate the hidden land of Atlantis, and his grandfather now knows exactly where it is, and Michael J. Fox's character knows how to speak Atlantean, because it's something that he's been studying with his grandfather, who's been obsessed with it for a while. John Mahoney, I think, plays his grandfather, so that's a good one. And so he gets a group of armed forces people to help him find Atlantis, and they find it, but then they discover that the armed group that he was going with actually want to destroy Atlantis and take its technology, but there are people who are living there, and that's all you know. It's an amazing action cartoon. Just a phenomenal storyline, just a great, in general, action cartoon that they need to do more of. Number 72, we find Roxanne, Steve Martin's ode to, what's that? Oh, shit. It's his version of a classical piece of literature. Roxanne. Cyrano de Bergerac, yes, based on Cyrano de Bergerac by Edmond Rostand. So Steve Martin, Daryl Hannah, Rick Rossovich, Shelley Duvall, John Kapelos, Fred Willard, Michael J. Pollard, Damon Wayans, Kevin Nealon, and it's Brian George also. It's set in a actual Canadian town, filmed there, which is gorgeous, and Steve Martin plays the big-nosed fire chief of this town, who is a poet. His best friend is played by Shelley Duvall, and a new woman comes to town, played by gorgeous Daryl Hannah. She's a astronomer who's trying to finish up her college project, where she believes she's discovered a comet, and this location has the best view of her to see the comet. And she'll be able to prove that it exists if it hits the spot, a certain spot, whatever. But everybody in town, falls in love with her. And a new fireman, played by Rick Rossovich, comes in and sees her also. But Rick Rossovich is a complete and utter, dullard, doesn't know how to talk to women. And he's attracted to Daryl Hannah. Daryl Hannah's attracted to him. Steve Martin's attracted to Daryl Hannah, but he's ensconced in the friend zone, but he's trying to break out of it. So he decides to help Rick Rossovich's character to try to woo Daryl Hannah's character, and the rest is history. It's got one of my favorite sequences in film, where Steve Martin has just had an argument with Daryl Hannah, and as he's counting down as she's ignoring him, he, with his big nose, he sniffs fire, and the musical score, the setting, because it's set in this gorgeous mountain town in Canada. where it's filmed entirely there, and it's gorgeous. Nelson, that's what Nelson, British Columbia, and it has Steve Martin going to his firefighters to tell them there's a fire somewhere. Now he's trying to train these firefighters. These are all volunteer firefighters, so they are complete and utter nitwits and don't know how to do it. So he's got to try to help train them. And Rick Rossovich's character is a real fireman who's come there to help them train up to become real firemen also. But it's just an amazing sequence. The music is outstanding. The scenery is outstanding. And Steve Martin this is one of the ones that he wrote. It's one of his best films and a great adaptation of Cyrano de Bergerac. Number 71 is Into the Spider-Verse, the insane animated film that introduces Miles Morales as well as the Spider-Verse into the world. Spider-Gwen makes her appearance here as well. And I got to get moving because I want to take my wife to dinner here soon. So I'm just going to go through this. The sequel's coming out June 3rd. It became so popular, but it's what made the script. It won the Oscar for Best Animated Film. It used multiple animation styles, a great like hard heavy soundtrack sort of thing going on, and it is just a feast for your eyes. It's not your typical animated film, but that's what makes it so great. And the sequel looks just as insane. It's coming out next month. Number 70 is one of Harrison Ford's continuing list of great movies where he continues to shine in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and so on and so forth. This was one of the last great action films that he ever did, based on a 1960s TV show. This is The Fugitive. Tommy Lee Jones won the Oscar for his portrayal of Inspector Gerard, who's hunting down Harrison Ford's doctor, who is accused of murdering his wife, even though he didn't. He claims a one-armed man did it, and Tommy Lee Jones doesn't care. He's trying to hunt down Harrison Ford's doctor. Meanwhile, Harrison Ford is trying to hunt down the one-armed man. So they're both doing investigations. Is a tense action sequence. Joe Pantoliano's in this one as well. He's all over the place, man. And it's just it shows Harrison Ford trying to solve this crime on his own, but also needs some help from some other people, and he's using his brains how to figure it out. Meanwhile, we also focus on Tommy Lee Jones and his crew of federal marshals who are chasing him. It goes into there's a sequence at the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Chicago, and just a great sequence, the finale in a building. It's just a tense, incredible action film. So good. The Fugitive is number 70. 1969. 69, dude, is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So, of course, I had to make it 69 because of that one line in the film. Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, George Carlin. Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves. This is young Keanu Reeves before he became Studley, John Wick, and Matrix dude. This is when he was slacker, beach California beach bum guy, and he and Alex Winter play two losers in high school who are failing all their subjects, and they have to pass their history exam, or Keanu Reeves' dad is going to send him to military school. And Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves are trying to start a band, and if he does that, the band will break up and they'll never become famous. So cue George Carlin, who rolls in from the future in a time-traveling telephone box, much like Doctor Who, apparently. But anyway, and explains to them that they are the song that they wrote as their band helps unite the universe in peace and harmony, and they can't split them up. So they're here to help them with the history exam with this time machine. So Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves have to go back in time and take historical figures from history, bring them to present day California, have them explore and let them explain what their feelings are about what the future is. And there's your premise right there. Obviously, things go crazy. They pick up a bunch of historical figures. Things go sideways in certain things. They lose track of time, stuff like that. And they have a small window to get this taken care of. All the historical figures get arrested. But it's worth it for the finale sequence with the history lesson as well. It's a great film. It is so fun. It's enjoyable. It's just, I can't go on how great this is. It is such a great, fun film. But Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is number 69, dude. 68, we find Bowfinger. Steve Martin pops up again. This time, he teams up with Eddie Murphy for the first time in one of Eddie Murphy's last great comedies he's ever did. And it's a great, Jamie Kennedy pops up in this as well. So does Heather Graham. Robert Downey Jr. Is in this too, as is, I feel like I'm missing a few people, but it's not important right now. But, Christine Baranski's in it as well. And the basic premise behind this is easy. Steve Martin is a wannabe director who's been trying to make a hit movie with this small group of friends that he has, but he's unsuccessful until he comes up with an idea that he is going to, one of his crewmates has written a screenplay called Chubby Rain about aliens invading California in raindrops. And in order to get a production deal, he overhears powerful producer played by Robert Downey Jr. say that Kit Ramsey is the huge best actor, the hugest actor, and if they can get him to be in a movie that they're trying to pitch to him, it'll be a huge hit. So Steve Martin overhears this and pretends that he's got Kit Ramsey on the phone with the producer, and the producer's listening to this. So the producer starts talking to him and says, and Steve Martin gives him the script, and the powerful producer says, if you look through the script and says a few things, he says, you can get me Kit Ramsey, I'll make this a go picture. And he's just humoring Steve Martin. He knows Steve Martin is faking everything. So Steve Martin leaves, and Robert Downey Jr. is like, what just happened? I don't know. He knows nothing's going to come of it. But Steve Martin takes it seriously. So he decides to stalk Eddie Murphy's Kit Ramsey and videotape him, film crew filming him from a distance, and have his castmates go up to him and do the lines and see his reaction to it. There's more to it than that. Eddie Murphy plays a couple of roles in the film as well, but it is a amazingly funny film. Another one Steve Martin has written, and absolutely well worth it. Number 67 is Matinee. John Goodman, Kathy Moriarty, and a great coming-of-age film set in Key West during the Cuban Missile Crisis, where the Russian missiles were focused on Key West, and everyone in Key West is holding their breath as the United States is trying to work out a deal with the Russians. But it follows a group of kids who, over a weekend where the missile crisis is happening, there happens to also be a monster movie that's being premiered in their theater, produced by John Goodman's character, who does 4D sort of stuff. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff, people dressed in costumes, vibrating seats, all kinds of stuff. And it's about a giant ant that gets mutated by a nuclear bomb. And so it's a great coming of age film. John Goodman and Kathy Moriarty are the grown-ups, and they are good, but the film does not really belong to them. It belongs to the kids, and they are all good. So I got that much to do in a very short amount of time. So number 67 is Matinee, directed by Joe Dante. It is wonderful. Number 66 is probably Sharon Stone's best film, in my opinion. Sam Raimi directed it and brought a wonderful cast around her, including Leonardo DiCaprio, Gene Hackman. It's The Quick and the Dead. It's a Western. Gary Sinise is in it also. And Sharon Stone, it's a revenge Western. Sharon Stone is a unknown woman who enters a town run by a megalomaniac played by Gene Hackman, who runs the town with an iron fist. He's put up a competition for a gunslinging competition with first prize being like $50 or $100, which at that time is like thousands of dollars. So you get all these gunslingers from around to also show off their prowess, knowing full well that they're probably going to die. It's a shoot to kill sort of thing. So Sharon Stone enters the competition. Oh, and Russell Crowe's in it also, in one of his first appearances too. It might actually be his first appearance in a film, but it is a fantastic Sam Raimi style Western. It's dark, it's gritty, it's got hyperkinetic action sequences. The shootouts are great. This is before Leonardo DiCaprio became a huge star. He plays a pompous asshole really well at Gene Hackman doing Gene Hackman stuff. It's a great film, and if you haven't seen it, you definitely need to see it. Don't let it. This came out after Sharon Stone's Basic Instincts. Everybody was expecting her to do more of these, sexual thrillers. This is not a sexual thriller. This is a straight up Western action film, and Sharon Stone absolutely kills it in it. 65 is My Cousin Vinny, Joe Pesci, Ralph Macchio, Marissa Tomei, who won the Oscar for this as well, Fred Gwynn, and basically Ralph Macchio and his buddy are accidentally are arrested and are accidentally charged with murder because they believe that they went to a like a little grocery mart thing. They bought some food and left, and then Ralph Macchio discovers he accidentally shoplifted something, and he wanted to go back and apologize or whatever. But then he sees police cars chasing him. It's like, oh, geez, they already know that I did it. So he's thinking they're coming to arrest him or talk to him about the shoplifting. But it turns out that they are charging him with murdering the grocery mart guy. So they end up going to jail. And they don't have any money to help anything. So they call Ralph Macchio's cousin, Vinny, played by Joe Pesci, who is a lawyer. And he comes down. So it's a fish out of water thing. He comes down from New York, comes to like Oklahoma or Missouri or Mississippi, wherever this is. And immediately has to, try to, protect his cousin from getting the electric chair, because that's what it's the death penalty for murder. If they get charged with murder, they're going to get the death penalty, even though they didn't do it. So Joe Pesci, who's a very rookie lawyer, has to figure out how to solve this case with never really doing a court case before. But it is great. Lawyers say that the courtroom scenes are very realistic, and they use it for study purposes for young lawyers coming and stuff like that. Marissa Tomei deserved the Oscar. She won despite all the jokes about it not being true, but it is, in fact, really good performance. 64 finds the Muppet Christmas Carol, Michael Caine as Scrooge, and then all the Muppets as all the other characters in the Christmas Carol story. This is my sister, brother-in-law, and nephews, their favorite Christmas movie of all time. It is a fantastic, wonderful Christmas adaptation of A Christmas Carol. Muppets, Michael Caine. Michael Caine is having a blast doing the role, and the Muppets are great. The music is wonderful. It's a great adaptation of A Christmas Carol. Number 63, we find The Incredibles. I talked about Incredibles Part 2 already. The Incredibles, the original one, introduces us to the characters in a city in a country where superheroes are illegal, but the superheroes who were around before they became illegal still want to help people. And so they're trying to acclimate to normal life, but they can't. So they go out and secretly try to stop crime. So they get in trouble with that. And then a former sidekick of the main Mr. Incredible comes in and finds a way that he can maybe bring back superheroes to prominence, but he does it using evil ways. So The Incredibles is number 63. 62 is Better Off Dead. I talked about One Crazy Summer yesterday. That was Steve Holland. Had 3 movies. How I Got into College is not in the list, but One Crazy Summer was. I talked about that yesterday. Better Off Dead was the first film by Savage Steve Holland. Curtis Armstrong, John Cusack. Is there any other major actors in that? No, not really. David Ogden Stiers is in it too. Plays John Cusack's dad. He's great in the movie. I love David Ogden Stiers' character in this movie. He's great in everything he does anyway, but it's great in this movie. But this is Savage Steve Holland that I talked about yesterday, is this insane, crazy director who just absolutely just throws everything to the wall and does stuff. This has bits including the My $2, about the newspaper reporter who stalks John Cusack's character to pay him for his paper route money. 2 Japanese guys who, one doesn't speak English, the other learned by watching Wide World of Sports, always want to race him in cars. John Cusack just lost his girlfriend to the most popular kid in school, so he can't handle it. So he thinks he should commit suicide because he can't live without his girlfriend, but stuff keeps happening that stops him from committing suicide. And when he starts feeling like he's doing okay, something else happens and he goes back to resorting to suicide. But again, something happens that stops him in the end. Curtis Armstrong is his best friend, has one of the best sequences where the the most popular guy who's also a bully asshole sees Curtis Armstrong and John Cusack at a Christmas dance, and he's with John Cusack's ex-girlfriend actually, and he's like saying, "Hey, I love your date. You know, you need to be careful to shave her a little bit," talking about Curtis Armstrong's guy making a gay joke, and Curtis Armstrong, without being insulted, just starts laughing maniacally at him, and it annoys the guy so much that it's the easiest way to stop a bully. And Curtis Armstrong does it on purpose. He knows that that's annoying the bully. He doesn't want the bully to know that it affected them, so he just thinks it's a fucking funny joke and laughs his ass off till the bully walks away, and then he gets all serious again. And then he comes back in a sequence where the bully's dancing with John Cusack's ex-girlfriend, and Curtis Armstrong comes up and starts laughing at him again to annoy him even more because he knows that it's annoying him. It's great. But then John Cusack meets the foreign exchange student who is staying at the house across the street from him and falls in love with her. And then there's skiing involved as well because they're in a ski resort. And then the dad is trying to figure out what's wrong with his son. And then John Cusack's younger brother is a genius and builds all kinds of crazy stuff. It's a wild, crazy film set around Christmas time. It's great. It's funny. It is absolutely an insane comedy. 61 is The Full Monty. You've probably seen the movie before. It was nominated for a ton of Oscars. It's a great emotional, dramatic comedy about 5 or 6 guys. I think it's 5 guys who are in England who were working at a scrapyard company. And when the scrapyard company goes belly up, they're all unemployed. So they're trying to find jobs like that. And they're having a hard time finding jobs. So they discover that, these strippers from Chippendales come to an event at their town and they make a ton of money off that. So these 5 guys decide that they should become strippers and they can make a ton of money. And so it's them trying to become strippers, but each character has their own issues and we learn about them and discover the different issues that they have and the things they have to deal with. So it is an emotional roller coaster, comedy drama about male strippers that are old, so and not good looking. So Robert Carlyle is the main actor in that. I think Mark something or other is the 2 main stars from that. All those, it's British, so it's all accented, filmed in Britain, England, but it is a absolutely wonderful film. Totally deserves the Oscar nominations it got. Full Monty's number 61. 60 is The Sixth Sense. M. Night Shyamalan's introductory film, which turned him into a huge directing star, has Bruce Willis. And I got to know the kid because the kid is absolutely phenomenal in the film. Haley Joel Osment. Yes. Haley Joel Osment is in it also. And the premise behind this, Haley Joel Osment is a boy who can see dead people. I see dead people. He's like a psychic medium. And he's having trouble in school and trying to acclimate to it. So he starts seeing a psychiatrist played by Bruce Willis who starts getting more involved in his storylines. It is a thriller, atmospheric thriller, a little bit of horror elements in it with an outstanding twist ending, which became M. Night's sort of his calling card, which is in a few movies down the line, I'm going to say how people misconstrued some of his twist endings. But this one is definitely well worth it. It is, a lot of people's opinion, is the best M. Night Shyamalan movie. It's almost, I have one that I like a lot better, but M. Night Shyamalan, this put him on the map. And Bruce Willis's understated performance in this is spectacular as well. And Haley Joel Osment absolutely killed it as the young boy that is centered on. He got an Oscar nomination, as he should have. Didn't win, but he should have gotten the Oscar nomination, which he did. 59 is another Joe Dante film. He did Matinee. This one is another Christmas film, Gremlins. It's a wonderful, outstanding comedy horror film. Was one of the films that also brought about the PG-13 rating up there with Temple of Doom as well. And the premise is a small every town in California, which actually was, this film came out after Back to the Future, but the set they used for Back to the Future is this town. So they just changed it up a little bit so you couldn't recognize it, but you can recognize it. Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, who looks gorgeous in it, Judge Reinhold, main actors in it, and basically his Zach Galligan's traveling salesman dad brings home an early Christmas present to him. Oh, Corey Feldman's in it also. Brings home an early Christmas present for him, which was this little thing called a Mogwai, absolutely adorable. Think Baby Yoda, but covered in fur and before Baby Yoda was created. But big eyes, chirpy, sings the little crazy talking stuff. And there are 3 rules. Never feed it after midnight, never get it wet, and never put it in the sunlight. It'll die in sunlight. And just don't get it wet and don't feed it after midnight. It doesn't tell you why, but just don't do it. So he follows the rules, but of course things happen and the rules get broken. The first rule that gets broken is water gets spilled on him accidentally, and that's how Mogwais reproduce. And so as the water hits him, he starts having all these things shoot off of him, which are other puffballs that create other Mogwais. But these Mogwais are not as nice and benevolent as Gizmo is. These are evil ones. And they, in turn, set the clock back so they can eat after midnight. And once they eat after midnight, they turn into these grotesque, awful creatures. And on Christmas Eve, they run rampant through this small town. And as more and more get multiplied, the whole town is overrun by all these evil gremlins. And it's up to Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, and their Mogwai to save the day. I wish I had more time to talk about how great this movie is. It is a great Christmas movie. It is a spectacular horror comedy Christmas film. Great sequences. The Snow White sequence is classic. Phoebe Cates is absolutely stunningly gorgeous in this. The bar scene that she's involved with is fantastic. Mogwai is Gizmo is absolutely adorable. And just the whole Christmas atmosphere is just great. It's another film I watch all the time around Christmas time. Well worth it. Gremlins is 59. 58 is Fly Away Home. Gorgeous family film with Jeff Daniels and Anna Paquin. God damn it, I love this actress also, so I need to get her, give her proper props also because she's phenomenal in this too. But it is a wonderful children's family film. And Dana Delaney, Terry Kinney, who looks like Terry Kinney plays Jeff Daniels' brother. They look like they could be brothers in real life. It's so great. Holter Graham is the bad guy, and there's really no bad guy. But it's based on a true story about Anna Paquin plays a girl whose parents are divorced, and the mother got custody of her, and the mother lives in Australia. And on the way back from an event, the mother gets into a car accident, and the mother dies, and Anna Paquin is injured. Jeff Daniels, who is her father, lives in Canada, flies from Canada down to Australia to bring her home with him because even though he wasn't around her that much, he's still legally her parent. And since she lost her mother, he is now her guardian parent. So he takes her back to Canada where he's an artist, and he has to adjust to her arrival. He's dating a woman played by Dana Delaney, who's absolutely wonderful in this film. She's adorable. She's not evil stepmom. She's trying her best to try to help out the little girl, and ends up being one of the little girls, Anna Paquin's, one of her dearest confidants and best friends. Jeff Daniels' brother, Terry Kinney, comes into town to help out as well. And Jeff Daniels, who's an artist, he also loves to fly his own experimental airplanes that he flies. Meanwhile, he's also an environmentalist. And one morning, there's people who are trying to destroy the forest and the neighborhood that they live in, the forest and stuff like that. And they're trying to stop them, and they end up killing a goose mom, but the eggs are still there. So Anna Paquin's character discovers the goose eggs, takes them home and takes care of them, and then they hatch, and now she's got like 12 babies that she has to take care of. So it's about her trying to figure out how to take care of these babies, and then they have to learn that they have to migrate, and someone has to teach them how to migrate so they can survive. So using his prowess as an airplane builder, Jeff Daniels builds an airplane for Anna Paquin to teach her how to help the goslings fly, migrate into southern United States. It's a amazing, wonderful, absolutely gorgeous, filmed, sweet. I cannot describe how much I love this movie. And I adore this movie, and it is absolutely heartbreaking. It's wonderful. It's gorgeous. The geese are real geese. They're not fake CGI in it. They're real geese. It's creative. And Baltimore gets a shout out as well. So it's great. Fly Away Home, number 58. Ways to go. Come on, you can do this. 57 is Signs, another M. Night Shyamalan movie. This one is about an alien invasion. Has Mel Gibson, Joaquin Phoenix in it. One of the Culkin boys, so not Kieran. I forget the other one. I forget the other Culkin boy. But the premise is a great one. It's like basically what would happen if Independence Day happens, aliens have invaded, but you are not the main character trying to stop the aliens. You are just a farmer in Amish country in Pennsylvania, just trying to survive. He's a former priest who has lost the priesthood once his wife got killed, or was killed in a car accident, and he's lost his faith. And his brother, played by Joaquin Phoenix, comes in and help take care of the two children. And Mel Gibson is playing a very understated, low type of role, and just imagine, so that Independence Day is happening. So you've got people who are trying to fight the aliens, and you're just a regular guy, not sure exactly what's going on, just living your life while other people are trying to save the world. And you don't even know what they're doing. You're just trying to survive. And the aliens happen to be coming towards you as well. It's greatly understated. It is my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie. People bitch and complain about the movie. There really is no twist. Even they say, oh, that's a twist. It's a stupid twist. No, there isn't a twist. Really, there isn't. And also the fact is, if the aliens were hurt by water, why did they come to a planet made up of water? Well, because they didn't know water hurt them, genius. It's pretty obvious when the one alien gets burned by water. He's shocked by what's happening. He's like, what the hell just happened? They didn't know about that. So Signs is a great movie, and I got to get moving. I wish I could talk about it more, but I can't. But it's great. Number 56 is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. The original Harry Potter, Christopher Columbus, did a great job with the casting, the set. The storyline is a very faithful adaptation. It is a perfect adaptation. Wonderful cast. I'm not going to say any more than that because you know how great it is. 55, we have Robert Zemeckis popping back in here with Forrest Gump. Another great Tom Hanks performance, but this movie really belongs to Robert Zemeckis as he directs the shit out of it and won Best Director and Best Picture, as he should have, despite everybody screaming that Pulp Fiction should have. No, it really shouldn't have. Forrest Gump won as deservedly. Gary Sinise, and then Buttercup from The Princess Bride. I can't think of her name right now, but she's also in it as well. Sally Field, McKelty, I forget, Johnson, Wilson, whatever, Williams, whatever. But it's, follows, and Haley Joel Osment's in it also. Forrest Gump is a guy who is, mildly retarded, who just happens to experience historical events by accident. It's Robert Zemeckis that is great. He's able to integrate Tom Hanks' Forrest Gump with John F. Kennedy, Richard Nixon, and Lyndon Johnson, and John Lennon, and Dick Cavett, and all kinds of stuff. And gets this mildly retarded man involved in some of the most historical events in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Forrest Gump is phenomenal. It's great. It's one of Robert Zemeckis' greatest films, and there we go. 54 is one of Ron Howard's greatest films, Apollo 13, with the aforementioned Tom Hanks. Gary Sinise is also in this. Bill Paxton and Kevin Bacon also round out the cast in this. Ed Harris is in it too, and it's based on a true story. Apollo 13 was, they were heading for the moon. En route to the moon, their spaceship explodes, but they are still surviving, and they've got to find a way back home to Earth. They're going to miss the moon, and they've got to figure out a way to survive for 3 days to get back to Earth, and then how they're going to survive re-entry when their ship is damaged. It's a tense film that we know how it ends, but it still ratchets up the tension where you're sort of wondering what could happen next. Are they going to survive? It's a love letter to scientists and solving problems using your mind and not your brawn. And it's a great film. Apollo 13 is number 54. 53 is my favorite not my favorite Christmas. It is Christmas movie I watch every Christmas Eve when I'm wrapping my wife's presents. It is a classic, 1983. It's starting to get a little bit more hate recently, but it is a great film set in the 1940s. It's a Christmas Story. Peter Billingsley, and I forget Melinda Dillon. I forget some of the other characters, but it's just basically about a young boy who wants a BB gun and has to convince his parents that he's good for the BB gun, but they are all against him from doing it. So he's trying to find other people to do it. Just gobsmacked, filled with all kinds of wonderful set pieces, great set design set in the 1930s and 40s, great performances by all the characters in it, and it's a great Christmas movie. Christmas Story is number 53. 52 is Raiders of the Lost Ark. I talked about Indiana Jones earlier. This is the first one that introduced him. Karen Allen, John Rhys Davies pops up in this as well. And this one, they're in search of the Lost Ark, which is a gold container for the 10 Commandments. And the Nazis are looking for it also. But it is the first appearance of Indiana Jones, this high-kicking action film that set off the whole Indiana Jones stuff. Raiders of the Lost Ark is number 52. And yes, Indiana Jones did not need to be in this film for the stuff to happen in the film, but that's for discussion another time. Finally, number 51, we're going to end for now because I went a little longer than I thought I would. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is another outstanding Christmas movie. A lot of people's favorite Christmas movie of all time. It is absolutely a just the worst ever Christmas holiday ever. Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Peter Galecki, not Peter, but Johnny Galecki, Juliette Lewis, Randy Quaid is involved. That Brian Doyle Murray, and it's just the worst Christmas thing you gotta think of. Where Chevy Chase's character Clark Griswold, who was in previously European Vacation and Regular Vacation, he and his family decided to stay home for Christmas and invite their whole family over, and then one thing leads to another, and it becomes all kinds of horrible stuff, from squirrels to rabid dogs to lights that don't work to being trapped in an attic to Christmas trees burning up for explosions and all just kind of whack crazy. Julie Louis-Dreyfus in it as well. Just all kinds of insanity, craziness. Sam McMurray's in it too. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is number 51. All right, I got to end here because I really need to take my wife out for her Mother's Day dinner. So hopefully part 2 I can get done before my 500th episode later tonight. Thanks, guys, for watching. I'm out.